Japan has some of the longest-lived people on Earth. We talk about their diet. We talk about their sense of purpose, ikigai. We talk about their social connections. But there's one Japanese practice that almost never comes up in these conversations. And it may be the most accessible, most scientifically validated longevity tool that exists. It doesn't cost anything. It requires no equipment. You don't need to be fit to do it. And 20 minutes is enough to produce measurable changes in your blood, your brain, and your immune system. It's called Shinrin Yoku, forest bathing. And what Japanese researchers have discovered about what happens to your body when you spend time in nature, quietly, intentionally, with all your senses open, should change how you think about the hours you spend indoors. Today, I'm going to share what the science actually shows, and exactly how to do this, whether you live near a forest, a park, or a tree-lined street. Shinrin Yoku, the Japanese words for forest and bathing, was formally introduced as a public health practice by the Japanese government in 1982, not as a spiritual or cultural tradition, as a medical recommendation. The Japanese Forest Therapy Society was established to research and certify forest therapy trails across the country. Since then, more than 60 designated forest therapy trails have been established in Japan, and Shinrin Yoku has been integrated into the National Health Program. But what makes this remarkable is not its cultural heritage. It's what happens biologically when you practice it. Because researchers, led by immunologist Dr. Ching Li at the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo, have spent decades measuring exactly what forest environments do to the human body. And the results are extraordinary. Let's go through the science, system by system. The most striking research on Shinrin Yoku involves the immune system, specifically a type of white blood cell called natural killer cells, or NK cells. NK cells are your body's first line of defense against viruses and cancer. They patrol the bloodstream, identifying and destroying abnormal cells before they can multiply. Their activity level is a direct indicator of immune strength. Dr. Ching Li conducted a landmark study in which participants spent 2 nights and 3 days in a forest environment. Before and after the trip, blood samples were taken and NK cell activity was measured. The results were striking. After the forest stay, NK cell activity increased by 50%. The number of NK cells increased by 40%. And these effects persisted. When measured again 30 days later, NK cell activity was still significantly elevated above baseline. A single weekend in a forest produced immune benefits that lasted a full month. When the same participants spent a weekend in a city as a control, same amount of walking, same amount of sleep, same food, NK cell activity did not change. The difference was the forest itself. Specifically, the researchers identified the active ingredient, compounds called phytoncides, antimicrobial volatile organic compounds released by trees, particularly conifers like cedar, pine, and cypress. These are essentially the forest's immune system, and when we breathe them, they activate ours. In a follow-up experiment, Dr. Li had participants spend nights in a hotel room where cedar wood oil was diffused into the air, mimicking the phytoncide exposure of a forest. NK cell activity increased significantly, confirming that the airborne compounds from trees were the primary mechanism, not exercise or stress reduction alone. The second major area of research involves cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Chronic elevated cortisol is one of the most damaging conditions in aging. It suppresses immune function, impairs memory, promotes abdominal fat storage, accelerates bone loss, disrupts sleep, and increases cardiovascular risk. And modern life, with its noise, screens, time pressure, and social isolation, keeps cortisol chronically elevated in most older adults. Multiple studies have measured cortisol levels before and after time in nature. A systematic review published in Environmental Health and Preventive Medicine analyzed 22 studies involving over 8,000 participants across multiple countries. The finding was consistent. Time in forest environments significantly reduced salivary cortisol compared to time in urban environments. The reduction was meaningful, not just statistically significant. Participants who spent time in forests showed cortisol levels that were, on average, 12 to 15% lower than their urban counterparts, and these reductions occurred in as little as 20 minutes of quiet time in a natural setting. 20 minutes. That's the threshold at which measurable cortisol reduction begins. Researchers also measured other physiological markers of stress: heart rate, blood pressure, and activity of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight system. All three were significantly lower in forest environments compared to urban environments, even when controlling for physical activity. Nature doesn't just feel calming. It physiologically shifts your nervous system from sympathetic dominance, high alert, high cortisol, high strain on the heart, toward parasympathetic dominance, rest, repair, recovery. In 2015, researchers at Stanford University published a study that has since become one of the most cited in environmental psychology. Participants were randomly assigned to walk for 90 minutes, either in a natural setting, a park with trees and grass, or along a busy urban road. Before and after the walk, brain scans were taken using fMRI, and participants completed psychological assessments. The urban walkers showed no significant change in brain activity. The nature walkers showed a significant decrease in activity in the subgenual prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain associated with repetitive negative thoughts, self-referential rumination, and a pattern researchers call maladaptive brooding. In plain language, nature walks quiet the part of the brain responsible for worry, self-criticism, and the mental loop of anxious thinking that disrupts sleep, drains energy, and is strongly associated with depression. A separate study from the University of Michigan found that time in nature improved performance on attention and memory tasks by 20%, a finding that has been replicated in multiple subsequent studies. The mechanism, researchers believe, is attention restoration theory. Natural environments allow the directed attention network, the mental resource we use for focused tasks, to rest and recover. Unlike city environments, which constantly demand directed attention, nature engages our effortless, involuntary attention, allowing cognitive restoration. For older adults, this is particularly significant. Cognitive fatigue, the mental exhaustion that comes from sustained attention demands, is associated with accelerated cognitive decline. Regular nature exposure provides a form of mental recovery that screens, books, and even passive entertainment cannot. A 2019 study published in Scientific Reports analyzed data from 19,806 people in England. Participants who spent 2 hours or more in nature per week in any combination, whether a single long visit or multiple shorter ones, reported significantly better health and well-being than those who spent no time in nature. Below 2 hours per week, the benefits were minimal. Above 2 hours, they were consistent and meaningful across all age groups, all health conditions, and all urban and rural settings. 2 hours per week. That's 17 minutes a day. A large-scale study published in The Lancet Planetary Health followed over 290,000 participants across 8 countries and found that living in areas with more green space was associated with lower rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, premature death, and mental health problems, including depression and anxiety. And Penn State researchers surveyed 292 adults over 65 who visited a nature preserve at least once a week. Those visitors reported significantly higher levels of purpose in life, social support, and positive emotion, 3 of the strongest predictors of longevity known to researchers. Purpose in life, in particular, has been associated in multiple studies with a significantly reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease and cardiovascular events. It is not a soft, feel-good metric. It is a biological protective factor, and time in nature consistently, reliably enhances it. Here is what distinguishes Shinrin Yoku from a regular walk, because the distinction matters for getting the full benefit. Shinrin Yoku is not about exercise, it is about presence. The research benefits come from slowing down, not from covering distance. A 20-minute slow, attentive walk in a park produces more measurable stress reduction than a 45-minute brisk walk on the same path while listening to a podcast. The practice involves engaging all 5 senses deliberately. Sight. Look at the light through leaves, the texture of bark, the movement of branches. Let your gaze be soft and wide rather than focused. Sound. Listen for birdsong, wind, water, the rustle of leaves. If you hear traffic, turn away from it and toward natural sounds. Smell. Breathe slowly and deeply. The phytoncides that activate NK cells are inhaled. Slow, deep breathing in a wooded area maximizes your exposure. Touch. If possible, touch the bark of a tree, the texture of a leaf, the ground beneath your feet. Physical contact with natural surfaces has been shown to reduce cortisol independently of visual or auditory stimulation. Taste. In appropriate settings, tasting clean outdoor air, spring water, or edible plants connects you to the environment in a way that engages the nervous system differently than passive observation. Leave your phone in your pocket. Or better, leave it in the car. The research on nature's cognitive benefits specifically requires that attentional demands be removed. Checking messages, taking photos, or listening to audio while in nature reduces the restorative effect significantly. You don't need a forest, a park with mature trees, a garden, a riverside path, a beach. Any natural environment that removes you from urban noise and visual stimulation provides benefit. Studies show that even brief exposure to plants and natural light through a window produces measurable reductions in stress. The minimum effective dose, based on the research, 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times per week. The optimal dose for full immune, stress, and cognitive benefits, 2 hours per week in any combination. Japan didn't build Shinrin Yoku into its national health program because it sounded nice. It did so because the research was compelling, and because the practice is free, accessible, and requires nothing that most older adults don't already have: time and a door to walk through. In 20 minutes, your cortisol drops, your blood pressure falls, your immune cells wake up, the part of your brain that generates worry goes quiet, and something that researchers can now measure, but that humans have felt for centuries, begins to happen. You feel better. Not because you were told to, because your biology is responding to an environment it was built for. The question is not whether this works. The research has answered that. The question is whether you will make it a habit. I want to challenge you to try this for the next 7 days. 20 minutes outside, phone in your pocket, senses open. Not walking for exercise, walking for presence. And tell me, in the comments below, what you notice. Please share this video with someone who spends too much time indoors, someone who feels anxious, tired, or disconnected. The prescription might be simpler than they think. Subscribe for more honest, science-backed conversations about what it really takes to age well after 60. Take care of yourself and go outside.